And we're live, finally. So we're here after our experience playing this game, playing this system. We're here to discuss Daggerheart. So this is, of course, the new epic TTRPG from Darrington Press, powered by an innovative card and duality dice system. Daggerheart blends tactical depth with narrative freedom, empowering each group to make the game their own. So let's find out if that's true. So welcome to Upturned Table. I'm Jeremy, and with me today, the players from our Daggerheart sessions, Matt, Will, Arturo, and Abyss. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
All right. So yeah, I thought we would, after having actually played it, talk a little bit about how it felt, what we were able to do with it, and just basically any of your thoughts about its future, or why they even did this. Like, why? I guess that's probably obvious, but let's go into it. So I guess to start out a little bit, let's have everybody talk a little bit about their experience with Critical Role, because you can't really deal with anything Darrington Press is doing without that kind of shadow of Critical Role and everything that Matt Mercer has done with that to it's gonna flavor your opinion. So how do you guys, is anybody a regular watcher, anybody a fan, anybody like really disgusted with what they've done to tabletop role play?
No, sir. I absolutely love it.
Okay.
Yeah, do you watch it regularly?
Yes, I watch everything.
I can't tell if you're being facetious or not.
Yeah, I know. Is that sarcasm? What's going on?
You'll never know.
Yes. I mean, I watched all of season 2, so I was in their middle part as their meteoric rise is what I watched. So I only watched it before they were super cool, and now can't watch it anymore.
Was that still?
I enjoyed it a lot at the time, and then just kind of lost the mojo. Basically, it's one of those things of like I watched it and I watched from the beginning of something to the end of that arc of their characters like that, and then they all made new characters, and I didn't care anymore because they were starting back over from zero. So I just didn't.
Oh, interesting.
Do stuff, and their general attitude changed too. So they went a little bit more like if they were getting goofier and goofier and goofier. I feel as they went along, and so they started out very kind of goofy to me, and so it just didn't land as well on the third time. But I've enjoyed them, and I don't personally have any negative stuff. It's just I kind of fall out of interest.
Interesting. How about you, Matt?
Arturo?
No, go ahead, Arturo. Yeah.
Yeah, I never really caught too many of their actual plays. I think I've listened into some of it. I think I bought the Talari book at a game store once just to check it out, to look, because I'm a big lore guy. I love gazetteers. I've watched some of the cartoon show. I think it's on Amazon. I think the fact that they've helped kind of put the spotlight on not just D&D, but like TTRPGs in general. The fact that they've done some partnerships with some indie companies, I think is kind of cool. So I think overall, I appreciate what they've done for community building and for the genre. I know some folks might get upset about some of the stuff, but I think overall, I think their impact has been more positive than negative. I do feel like a lot of newer fans of TTRPGs might have interesting expectations of what D&D and TTRPGs might be because of Critical Role, especially like there's a lot of DMs that talk about a lot of people try to GM like Matt Mercer, or players that like feel anxiety because they can't do voices, and all of that's kind of like that's some negative aspect of it, but I don't think that's actually as big a deal as most people make it out to be.
Right, I think that's internet harumph more than real people.
Yeah, grumpy grognards yelling at clouds.
Right. Yeah, Rascal News had that article, the professional actual plays are to TTRPGs what pornography is to actual sex. So I think that's a pretty good analogy. It's not giving you a perfect idea of what you're going to experience if you try one of these games, but it's very,
so like there are there's two types of actual plays, because there are actual plays that I follow to learn a system. These are more the second type, which I feel are more like old school radio serials. Like they're more of storytelling than playing a game or showing you how to play a game. And I think as long as you go in with it, that expectation, I think it's okay.
Yeah, that's good. And how about you, Matt? Did you go in kind of like feeling kind of negative just because of where the source of the game?
Well, see, I don't want to be that crappy old role player who hates Critical Role, but I am a little. Hate's a strong word. I won't say hate, but I've watched some episodes, and I am the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist who believes it is produced much like a modern reality television show, that people are directed in directions, and I know that Matt Mercer has said that that's not what happens, but I don't believe him. And I watched. I watched their Candela. Now I actually do hate their Candela Obscura one. that was just 6 ways from wrong. Like it was everything, and I think I'll end up talking about this a little when we get into the game. But everything's very produced, but it's also very much the edges are sanded down, and the colors are bright, and everything's nice, and like there's just not. It's sort of the modern thing. It's kind of what I feel 5th edition has gotten to now as well, probably related to Critical Role in a way. It's just it's not just high fantasy. It's high fantasy with no stakes, and everything's cool, and that gets kind of tiresome. I also don't like. I think Will mentioned this a little bit. A lot of these high produced popular ones, because I see this with that other one, what is it, Dimension 20 or whatever, is they play for laughs a lot, and that's annoying to me. I think there's a ton of humor that we get when we play these games, but it's naturalistic. It just happens in the moment. Like the interaction between the characters, or the characters and the NPCs, or the characters in the situation. And I think you can tell sometimes these cast members they're going for the jokes, and I don't like that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, so that's good. So we did this all digitally. So just you can watch on the channel. I'll put a link to the live streams. We played on Roll20, and Roll20 has an integration with the Demiplane Nexus, which actually it's a pretty heavy integration because there's no rules or anything actually in Roll20. You have to go outside into the Nexus interface for Daggerheart to see any of that. But we started, of course, with character creation. So a few of you guys had your character pretty well formed, like you did most of the steps before coming to our session 0, kind of our first session, where we did mostly world building. So we'll go into Nexus, the Demiplane Nexus, a little bit more later. But how did you find character creation when you were just kind of taking a look at the book and doing it on your own? Was it pretty straightforward? Was there stuff missing? Did you feel like you could make the kind of character you wanted to play, or was it you were just kind of going through the motions?
How do you want to do this? Should I just go?
Yeah.
Well, I think Abyss and Arturo were the ones that kind of came to the table mostly done, so they probably should.
Yeah, why don't you guys? Yeah,
Arturo, you want to go first? Arturo,
yeah, I mean, doing it on Demiplane and Roll20, like it was like building a character in a video game. Very much so. Like it kind of like was really very good at onboarding you and going through the steps. I thought once you got a knack for the system. I did like that I could make. It seems like there's a lot of character diversity in classes, anyways. Because I did feel I built a tank character that sometimes games like a Pathfinder or 4th edition are really good examples, where it feels almost like a World of Warcraft style MMO, where you just end up using the same 2 powers over and over again in combat, because that's all you need to do. When this game, I feel like my character as a tank had a lot of different options within combat, whether that was to do a charge attack, or I had a kind of a crowd control push attack. I had a couple AoE attacks. I had a tank ability that kind of improved my tanking attacks. I thought character-wise it was nice. I will say that I don't know if I would have had the same experience playing it in person. Because when we got to the actual mechanics of the game, there seems to be like a lot going on, but we'll get to that when we talk about actual play. Sure. But no, character creation seemed pretty easy. And I did like the incorporation of collaborative world building within Session 0. I always find games that do that are really, really fun and make for some like engaging Session 0s.
Good. And how about you, Abyss? How did you? What did you think of the kind of interface and your options, basically, for for choosing?
Well, Altura stole my point, so I'm gonna have to think of something else. I've said it before, but it is very, very, very much like a video game, and I think it helps a lot, especially with like for newer players, because people who've never played a role-playing game before, they see this interaction, and it does feel like a character creation in a video game RPG, and it really eases you into it. On my end, I got confused by a few things. Remember with the questions and stuff like that that I was supposed to ask my team? I didn't fully understand that. I thought it was like just questions like the game was asking me. So I just made stuff up on the spot.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's kind of genius in a way, but I know it's not meant for me. But like, I've been around, but someone who's like 16 or 18 and they've never done anything, and they make that connection like that, then they automatically get hooked in really, really easily. It's very daunting with some RPGs. I don't know if you guys remember like how like old school D&D was, like AD&D with like THAC0 and stuff like that. Like if you would put that in front of someone's face today, they would crumble. So to me, that's why I said this is kind of genius to like incorporate like a video game system. But all in all, it was kind of messy though, with like choosing abilities and stuff like it, because it was a lot to read through.
Yeah, that's true. Did you ever make a character in D&D Beyond for 5e?
No.
Okay,
no.
I was wondering if it was a similar
Pathfinder, but no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering if it's a similar experience. Yeah.
This was much more hand-holding and onboarding than my experience of D&D Beyond, but that was also, I don't know if D&D Beyond had enhanced their options, but I did feel that I was very comfortable creating the character because it broke down the steps very well. And then Abyss reminded me of something. I really loved the character connection questions in the system. I love it when games do that. Over COVID, my gaming group played Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, and I did something similar with our session 0 where before we started, I told everyone to email me 2 truths and a lie from their character.
Oh, cool.
And then I mixed that all up and sent it back to them. But the players didn't know what was a lie, what was truth. And the whole idea was that these characters were heroes in their own like region, but they were like branching out to be, Greek heroes. So people would already know a little bit about them, but they didn't know what was true and what was a myth. And it was session 1 was a very generic, like you're at a tavern, you meet up before an adventure. But that session 1 was one of the funnest session 1s I ever had because of those character connection questions. So I don't know if I like the way they integrated the character connection questions. I also think that because they were very class based, if I remember correctly, that it means if you're having a game with 2 classes, you're repeating those connecting questions, but in that case you can just like have the player make up their own.
Right.
But I just want to highlight how much I love that in character creation. Traveler does something similar where like each year of your life you can make a connection with one of the other characters. I always think that's really smart.
Yeah, very good for role play, and gets your backstory all integrated. That's good. So Matt and Will, so you guys, you kind of had a concept, maybe an idea of the kind of character you wanted to play, maybe like ancestry and class. But how did you find like doing it in session 0, building the character? Because they do recommend doing class and subclass first, which was an interesting choice. So I guess it kind of breaks that integration, because a lot of systems like 3.5 and Pathfinder, it's pretty obvious like which race goes with which class, to not build a disabled or the kind of a broken character. So how did you find the classes and basically building the character with Nexus?
Do it, Matt.
Oh man. So I picked my kin and my class and my subclass before we started, and then I built everything during our session. just off the bat, class-based systems are my least favorite kind of role-playing systems. So I had some biases. But the character creation was pretty straightforward and not necessarily in a good way, because you picked a class and you picked one of two subclasses, and that was it. And what Arturo was saying about the questions, I totally agree with. In fact, I would go so far, and this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I would go so far. This is my favorite part of this whole damn game. Like, I like when games build in something for cooperatively connecting the characters, so you're not just hand waving it, or all meeting in a tavern, super contrived. And some games will even take it a step farther. Like, I think there's an optional way to do it. Like he mentioned, Traveler, where you can actually cite your connection with another character in play to improve a skill, because maybe during character creation you're like, I'm not really sure if I want to put my point, if I want to develop this stat or this skill or whatever. And you can actually say, hey, remember that time we were in that shootout in front of the bank, blah, blah, blah. And then you can say, my laser weapon skill or whatever is actually a 2 now, or, that kind of thing. So I enjoy that a lot. I liked some of the experience stuff was kind of cool. Like, it was fun to have a catchphrase. It was fun to have like this little backstory thing. Like, my guy had an opportunist, was one of his experiences, and I had a little tiny backstory for that. So that was nice. Anything backgroundy like that, I really enjoyed. I am very grateful that we did this on Demiplane. Because, and Will can attest to this, if we had done this in live, in person, or with books and paper or whatever, it would have felt like making a 4E character. And Will has seen my misery in making a 4E character. I don't like it. I
thought we agreed we don't speak of 4th edition.
Well, I carry my scars. What can I say? It's like the 4E thing, but, and again, I'm getting the system now, so I'll keep this brief. But it feels like it's just dumbed down a little bit. Like, you're not flipping through as many pages of nonsense as with 4E. But I'm really grateful that Demiplane was very automated and made it real easy to make choices. So the character creation process is what I'm saying, was not bad. It's more just my opinions of the game in general, reflecting through that process.
Right. And how about you, Will? How did you think of the and anything you can compare it to, like if you've used D&D Beyond or anything before?
I haven't used any other digital tools to make characters. I mean, I've made a ton of 5th edition characters, so I have that as a basis, but not their actual software to compare. I enjoyed it, but I like the picking the abilities and that type of stuff. That's the stuff that I enjoy a lot in character creation. That's why I enjoy the 5th edition character creation stuff. Is because for me, like, sitting down with the handful of abilities or whatever it is, and trying to figure out like not only what mechanically works well together, but like what in my mind narratively mechanically works well together, if that makes sense, is one of the things that appeals to me. So coming to it, I came planning on making a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Right.
When I saw that there was a turtle. But I wanted to be a Guardian Turtle Warrior guy, and we had a Guardian Warrior guy that someone had already way more fleshed out and realized when I got there. So I was like, all right, Audible, what if I am a pile of magic items that is alive? And then I felt like this is, I think, the strength of so much of there's all this mechanical stuff, but there's so much narrative stuff in this game too. I think the fact that there's enough narrative stuff in the game for mechanic-wise that it lets you just be like, I want to be this thing, and you write down a couple words on your character sheet, and then you're that thing. So I think that like the character creation to me was very open. And I think that this is something that I've seen, and this is maybe me jumping ahead a little bit too, people talking about the system is it's doing this thing where it's straddling the line, right, between being crunchy like a Pathfinder, not as much as Pathfinder, or D&D 5e type thing, where you're picking powers and abilities that really lock in what you can do with specific things. But then it also has these narrative, like you pick the two experiences, which kind of affect, which are basically all the skills and competencies and everything you have in the entire game are those two things, which is a very narrative mechanic thing. And those two things, I felt they worked fine. I don't feel like energy-wise they connect well to me, but in terms of like experiencing the game, they and making a character, they fell a little off. But I'm kind of spinning now here in my ramblings. But I feel like it was easy to make a character quickly, and to make a character that was unique because of those experiences. And like Matt said, though, you only get a handful of powers. But then I look back at other games. In other games, you don't get any powers, right? I think that's where we get with how you, with all these things, it's how we psychologically feel about them, right? It's like you approach something, and it's like, oh, now, because I played old style games, right, where it's like, okay, you make a character. Is it Black Sword Hat, Matt? Where it's basically you just have 6 attributes and like one ability, and that's your whole character, right?
You have
and it's like
6 attributes. Your background kind of covers all your skills.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's a very quick, easy, smooth game to get into. And then you add a few more things, and then it starts feeling restrictive, right? And this is where I think you get into the game systems that have infinite things you can buy and infinite skills. Is the more you add, the more it makes the things you don't add stick out. And so this game is trying to be really narrative, but then it has a handful of abilities and a handful of powers, and it can make you feel, depending on how you look at it, it can make you feel restricted. It's like the, what do they call them, ancestries in this game. I've seen a lot of people talk about how bland and boring the ancestries are because they only have 2 powers. But then I played quite a few games where the ancestries only have 1 power, or you can play like D&D 5e where they have 50 powers, but 3 of those are like they move 30 feet in a turn. They only sleep for 6 hours instead of 8 hours, and it's like that's not really anything that I care about. Like, right. So like you break down those game systems too. It's like really they only have 2 relevant I care about things. Everything else is flavor, which in this game they tell you to make up the flavor instead of telling you here's our default flavor basically for everything.
Which
so that's my long-term rambling on stuff.
Will brings up a good point, because if you think about in terms of Critical Role and their style of gaming, like they're all about that flavor and nuance the players add. Like they're the type of gamers that show up to the table session 0 with like a 5-page backstory already written. That's kind of like the community they've developed. So having that kind of narrative flavor style for the character creation makes a lot of sense for their system. But I think if we're going to talk about expectations of the system next, this is nothing like a Daggerfall or Daggerheart is nothing like I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, we can do that next. Yeah, so basically it's pretty straightforward. There's only like 8 or 9 steps to basically go through, and it seems like you guys really enjoyed the experiences, which are like a player defined event that's happened, and you get a +2 bonus if you can kind of call on that when you're spending hope. And the other thing that we didn't really experience for character creation is the physical cards. Like the cards were digitally represented, the abilities. So spells and abilities are basically the same thing depending on your class that's chosen. And you choose 2 of those, and they're written on cards, and they give you the description and the mechanical effect of these. Yeah.
And I feel like, I think that's something that a lot of people have contention with again, but it depends again on what you're playing. If you're playing a game that's like a 5e game where your character has a bunch of specific powers and abilities, having them all on cards is incredibly convenient for your character. I know for some people it makes them feel like they're playing Magic or something instead of a role-playing game, but really what that's doing is it's keeping me from having to write down the laundry list of my Pathfinder feats and abilities on a sheet of paper, and instead it's just already printed out for me in a little little card.
Yeah.
So I appreciated the cards as a use for this type of thing of having these powers because there's no confusion on what they do.
Right.
I think the hard part of this whole discussion for me is going to be I want to avoid saying this is bad because it's mostly just this isn't what I like.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
it's more taste. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that could be the short thing. Is like, no, it's a fine system. I don't know if I like it or not, or I like it or not. I think that's what we all get down. I don't see anything. This might be a synopsis of the end thing, but I didn't see anything that I'm just like, no, that broke it and it's stupid. It seemed like it was all fine. It's just whether or not you like the level of narrative or mechanics, or the fact that they're hopping between those two fields back and forth.
Bad would be like the Cadwallan rule book, where you'd have to be like fluent in French, even though you're reading English, to try to understand what they're trying to tell you the game is.
Right.
Yeah, but can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's also a big chunk of the game that we did not even make use of because we're not a part, like culturally, a part of it. It had a lot of like a very how do you call it? Like it focused very like on communities and stuff like that, and areas, like the social norms of like a very, very progressive mindset, and we didn't like touch any of that stuff either.
Well, that's what was weird about the book in general to me, was that I was expecting a world and more lore, knowing Critical Role.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's just an open license style system with all of the flavor is like the most the most tertiary subject matter, and everything else you have to build yourself, which I thought was weird. Like I don't know.
It's all salt, no spice.
I was expecting a whole gazetteer attached to this, and it wasn't. It's just like they basically made a book because they saw there would be an open license war after Hasbro
it's baby's
messed up.
first steps, right?
Yeah.
Well, but I would counter that a bit and say for a new role player, like if this is your first game and they're not telling you shit about the world, that's actually a bad thing.
Yeah. Oh no, with that I agree. Because we got to choose from like 6 or 7 different type of worlds. Like none of them were focused on the same thing. They were all separate.
And even with that, it was our thought process that made that happen. It was the little background they give you is really small.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with this is what your
framework was, right? That's what they're called. Frameworks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like what this is about is what you're comparing this actual game to, right? Because if you're comparing this to 5e, 5e doesn't, in the core book, does not really have any lore in it at all either. It has some presupposed things about elves and dwarves a little bit, which they've now kind of back-ended and taken away in the current edition. So, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying that if you compare it to the big stompy thing in the room, which is D&D, it also doesn't. Right now, like it doesn't come with a world in it.
Yeah,
you're right. I think it's hard for me to compare it to look at it through that lens because D&D in its current version is not a game I really care about. So it's tough for me to look at it that way.
Yes.
Well, I think that's the thing about new systems and everything now. To me, anyways, is that. And I think you even talked about this when we were playing, like, oh yeah, any system can kind of work. It really is like setting in characters almost that make the game more or less fun. And now I enjoy the mechanics a lot, and to me, there's stuff about the character creation. Like when my guy died, I'm like, oh yeah, if we were going to play again, I could think of like another character, and I can think of it in 2 directions. I can think of it, and maybe this is me specifically, but I can think of it from like mechanics down, right? Where it's like, okay, well, what if I take a monkey guy and make him a this and a this? Okay, now what type of character would that be? Or I can say, oh, I want to play as a aloof noble whatchamacallit and then build myself up from like a character concept or from a mechanical concept. And that's what I appreciate, I think, from this system. And the thing I like about 5e in general too is the fact that I feel like I can make a character from two different directions. One from a completely like narrative concept up, or from a like, what if I make a monk but he uses Constitution as his main stat down?
Right.
Depending on how you want to do stuff. And I know that a lot of people don't like the second one, but
I have a question. How does that then work? Because we all have to ask each other's questions to make a connection. But if your character just keeps on dying, like how are you just like suddenly in the group and we all know each other? How does that work?
You just have to negotiate that with your GM and the group.
Right.
I mean,
Okay, what if like 10 characters die and it just keeps on going? Like how is...
oh man, you know,
There's a little. I mean, anytime you introduce a new character to a group, there's always a little suspension of disbelief, and it's almost like I always see it in form of like you're in a sitcom and it's just like the new neighbor moved in the next season. My thing is like the best games, the mechanics are there to help drive the story forward, and I think that's what my biggest issue with the failings of Daggerheart is, that it's a Frankenstein monster of a system. It's like they picked and choose all their favorite things from so many other systems. I see Played by Apocalypse in here. I see 2D20. I see Mutant Year Zero. I see D&D and Pathfinder. I think a couple others. But it looks like it's a Frankenstein monster. At least that's the way it feels. It's like they took the body parts from a bunch of different corpses and mashed it together, as opposed to, yes, they might have been made some derivative choices on their mechanics, but they put their own enough spin on it, and they're enough like, you know, if you have the skeletons that you took from someone else, but you put your own skin and nerves and battle pass costumes you can pay for every 3 months, I would be fine with it. But I just think it takes all these really cool ideas from other systems and it never does it well. And I think like the biggest failure of it, or at least the biggest sin I see, is the lack of risk in the game when they're using some systems that are a risk reward system. Like, what's the point of the risk of pushing my roll if like I have like 4 or 5 stress, plus I have mechanics that it's going to delete that stress right away. I think the mechanical drive and the narrative drive really, really didn't gel well together. I also don't like narrative driven combat systems. I actually kind of really hate them. So I'm actually glad we kind of ignored some aspects of that in this game, because I don't think that every turn and every round needs to have a narrative beat. I think that kind of bogs the game down. I also feel like forcing improv or forcing storytelling through mechanics is never a good way to tell story in a game or play mechanics. And I feel this system sometimes could fall into that area.
That's interesting that you have a take. I have a totally different take on it. I think the assumption is just that they assume everyone that's going to play this is a 5e player, and that's it. It feels like it is exactly just like a sister game of that, but like it just plays different. But it is basically 5e, but like more friendly.
And that makes sense from where it came from, right? Where like they're taking, I mean, they took 5e, which is a game that only has combat mechanics and no narrative mechanics in it, really. Written. Obviously, you can always do anything you want. And then I think that they were answering whatever, like, their audience had, or their thing of like, well, we this is the basis that we're coming at it from, but we want to have the ability to a mechanic in here that's actually can just be, I flavor it the way I want and it works type of a thing.
Right. Yeah, because they're now the main competitor, right?
Yeah,
that's what they want to be.
Yeah, they would.
That's what they want, but yeah, we don't know that war hasn't even started yet.
Yeah. So an interesting difference that struck me right away, because that's why I was noticing we were picking character classes first, like that's what they present as your first choice, is your stats or your attributes are not generated. You get an array. So they call them character traits, and they just give you this array of numbers +2 to -1, and then you just assign them to the six traits. So that was a little bit different and feels very Powered by the Apocalypse. Like that's the, you get that, you get 2 + 1s, you get a -1 and a 0, and so you can just assign those things. So it does like Arturo was saying, it does have a little bit of like weird Frankenstein, because I think I heard even someone saying that the 2d12 was also Powered by the Apocalypse inspired, but they wanted a bigger range. They wanted a bigger range of success, so they went with d12s instead of 2d6. And so there's some odd choices that I don't think work, because you can't mash Powered by the Apocalypse together with anything else, because it's a very kind of locked system in what it does. Its range of success, like how the dice work and everything, and then something much more tactical, much more granular I don't think combines well. So I think that's what we're feeling a lot of that. Were there any other expectations? Let's go move on to kind of expectations, or any expectations you had going in that were fulfilled because you're like, oh yeah, exactly, they would do this, or it was a real surprise to you, based on go what you got.
I have one that was fulfilled was I expected this real like homogenized sort of, I don't know what you call it, like hands around the world. Everyone looks different, but isn't really different thing, and they do have that vibe.
Right.
And but the one that surprised me, and I'm going to give you more credit for this, Jeremy, than the game.
Okay.
But when we were making our characters and we started playing, I saw no stakes at all. And when Will died, I was like, oh, you can die in this game.
So actually, I have a thought on that, because I wanted to talk about the adventure, and like I feel like that was a really good adventure up until the final fight, and I think they completely dropped the ball. But I don't know if we want to talk about that yet or keep talking about expectations.
Oh yeah.
Because for me, I expected weird little guys, and I was given weird little guys. I kind of expected a Chimera style system going in. I didn't realize how mechanical it was going to be. I assumed it was going to be much more narrative style gaming. And that was, I think, where a lot of my clashes with the system work, is I don't think those aspects of the game jive well together. I also assumed there would be much more story or world building when there was absolutely none. And that was kind of interesting to me, because I thought the whole strength of Critical Role is like the stories they've created together. And to not do that, I wonder what the future of Daggerheart is, if they're going to start using that system within their world they've been doing, or Vox Machina, whatever it's called, or if they're going to create a new thing. I would expect more synergy between the two aspects of the company.
That leaves open them to make source books for every setting.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually.
In a way, that's more synergy, right?
Yeah, the way they're already releasing new classes, and I don't know if those classes are paywalled or not, but like,
they're
if
actually
it's paywalled, that seems.
They're already.
Sorry.
They're. Yeah, I was surprised. I logged into Nexus. The playtest stuff is already available on the Daggerheart Nexus. So yeah, as far as playtest, they're probably going to be charging for them, so you have the cards and stuff. But yeah, they're already like available when you're making a character. So if we would have played a month later, you guys would have had access to the playtest classes as well. Sorry.
So how do they split the little, domains with the new classes?
Yeah, they're just sharing different domains. So yeah, they can't. I don't know how they're not graphically going to be able to fit them into that wheel anymore. But they are.
Yeah, they're going to have to be across from each other or something.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. They're going to be sharing. They're combinations of domains that I think haven't been used yet. Yeah, or haven't been combined yet. Yeah. So they're giving us different.
Yeah, because in theory, every domain could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other classes associated with it, because they only share with 2 of them already.
Yeah.
I think that my general expectations of it I think I enjoyed it more than I thought it was, and not because of the game, but because I thought like preconceived notions we all had going in. I had fun with it. I think that the only like mechanical sticking point that we ran into was like, and I feel was the initiative concept. I don't know if that was the system itself or us and how we were operating. That was the big thing where we were like kind of all, it's because our instinct is to kind of go in turns, but that's not really how it works. But then it's also like, oh, hey, I'm kind of on a roll. I want to keep going, but then everyone else is just sitting there. But then is that okay? And so I think that again, I think narrative stuff to me works better with small groups. I think if we were playing with just like 2 players or something, so you kind of are handing off, or one person went on a tear for a while and someone else would hop in later on, that would be good. But I think when you get up to like 4 people and it's just, okay, it's like us talking right now about this, right? There's no flag system, so one of us is like, oh wait, oh no, go ahead, you go, type of a thing. And that's how the initiative, to me, that was the only real sticky mechanical part that I had troubles with. Was I never knew, like, well, should I go again? Because like I have an idea of what I want to do. Should I step up, or should I just sit here and wait until I kind of feel like everyone else has had a turn before I go? And
Right.
I feel like that's the counter to what they were trying to make it. As I spent more time thinking about initiative than I did in a game where I just write down a number.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So the problem.
Go ahead.
The problem for me is, and this happens with these more kind of fuzzy wuzzy narrative approaches, is it's still a game, and games need some rules for, you need a framework of rules to play a game. And for instance, Will and I and our local group were playing Black Sword Hack for a while, and in that game it's side initiative, and every one of the players, when it's the player's turn, they all are guaranteed a turn, and they decide as a group who goes first. And that to me makes a whole hell of a lot more sense than this weird fuzzy wuzzy timey-wimey thing they're trying to do in this one. Because on top of that, they're trying to compel the game master to always be focused on the spotlight idea.
Yes.
Which we didn't really do.
Right.
And I don't blame you, Jeremy, for not even fucking with that. I don't blame you at all. And then on top of that, as soon as someone rolls with threat, it stops and goes to bad guys, which is fine. It's fine as an idea, but if we are having trouble working out who's going to go win, and maybe someone's been skipped for a couple actions, and then suddenly they don't get to go because someone rolled threat, I think that's a little punishing. And I'm not a big fan.
I enjoyed the game playing it, though I'm sure that was just like the group jibes really well. But I generally don't know if I would have enjoyed it if we were playing this in person with paper pencil, because there was just a lot of things that Roll20 was keeping track of, and I even then there was some stuff that I had to like keep looking at because I wasn't used to it, and there was just a lot going on. And I almost wish if they had done this as like a hybrid tabletop RPG board game, where like I had a little box for my character that had all the things that I could. I think I would even enjoy it more. But like as a D&D, like there was just a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, and I think
if you look at the go ahead.
Talking about like with the no initiative and just that spotlight, they did try to build in kind of cooperative mechanics, and they do have that tag team, that once per session tag team. So they're trying to get the characters to kind of coordinate and strategize, but it's not really required. It's it's available, but it doesn't naturally kind of come out of the mechanics, or you're not thinking that way. So there were a lot of times where you guys were going to use abilities like, oh, but I need to be near somebody to do this, or I need to, be powering somebody, or I can hand this off to somebody. But you weren't in the position to do it quite often, so I think it fell flat. And then when you rolled fear and it went over to my action, then when it went back to you, you're right, there were like characters would get skipped. We were like not it was just kind of all over the place once there was more kind of chaos on the battlefield, or more things going on. I don't think it worked the way that they intended it. And I think playing this with a group of complete strangers, like if you just did a Discord or like find a game digitally somewhere like on Roll20, it would be really hard to kind of coordinate that. I think it would fall apart even faster.
Yeah, I think imagine playing this at a convention or something with strangers, and maybe someone gets resentful for who the GM is spotlighting, or they get resentful because they've never played this game before, and they keep missing an action because someone keeps fucking rolling threat. And, you know what I mean? Like, you'd almost have to have house rules for playing with strangers to keep it fair, and that to me is a sign of not a well constructed system.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably why it has the huggy, touchy, feely setting is their defaults, right? Is like if in a game where you aren't, I think it's where we're coming from, right? So like in a game where we're coming from, where we're fighting this dark, foul stuff, and I know there was combats and stuff probably planned out, and they would have those in the base setting too, but if you're playing a more grim or something with more threat, then it feels like it gets in the way, right? And I think it gets down to the fact it's not just the initiative thing; it's the fact that it's a narrative-based game. This is like the Genesis problem. Every time we talk about this, I bring this up, and it's one of the first games I think they cite as a source of influence in here. It's the fact that we're doing round-to-round, blow-by-blow attacks, but everything has a narrative structure to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas if you're going to do that, it should be like, okay, the four of us are in this fight. Let's all describe what we're going to do. Let's all make a roll. Okay, let's do all the narrative stuff and explain it all and have a cool fight, and all the stuff happens, and that's the combat. That would work as a narrative combat with one rule. Everyone gets a roll, says what they're going to do, and based on that, we resolve everything. But when it's like, I make an attack, okay, I mean, this is a constant William complaint, right? It's like, why is the GM getting threat to do the thing that they already are supposed to do? I know this is what I complain about this thing, and I complain about a couple of systems too. But I felt that again here, because it's like, okay, I rolled with threat, so that's the same thing as the Powered by the Apocalypse, like doing a half success wherever it is. Like, okay, so with consequences. So now Jeremy's supposed to take an action, but I also gave him a point. So he can now spend that point to take another action, or to power an ability in theory. Or if he's just rolling us, maybe he'll take pity on us and not spend that point, in which case the mechanic's irrelevant, because now he's just hoarding stuff to not kill us type of a thing. And to me, it isn't the system itself, that it's the narrative. I mean, it's the narrative thing, but then trying to pile rules on to help frame it, right? Because like, are we doing improv or are we doing a game? And I think you can do some improv in a game, but there's like that line, and I feel like most of these narrative games to me goes way too much with trying to gamify the narrative aspects of it.
I agree.
To the point that I don't feel that the mechanics can function anymore. Because I think just like if you took, like, if we just said, okay, everyone takes a turn, or we're just going to keep going around the table, everyone's going to take an action, kind of explain what they're doing, and if any of us to roll with threat, Jeremy's going to attack us, or Jeremy gets monsters are going to attack. I think that alone would have worked, but then they added in that like threat mechanic, which is just, it's like you guys are saying, like there's just a little bit more added on to track stuff, just to try to give more flesh on there, and maybe it's a little lumpy.
I think that's where the video game aspect comes into play, because the characters are pretty broken. Like what Arturo did with charging in and swinging his axe, he could take out 4 at the same time. Right. And I think that could, and if we could combine our passive abilities with each other, because I could like give people like more dodge or like miss a hit, stuff like that. So you could all like interact with each other passively in order to boost that. And like 1-on-1, my character's pretty broken. I could roll and take any one of your weapons away from you, and there was nothing any of you could have done. But you're my teammate, so I don't get to do that to you. But I can do that to a boss. I could do that to anyone. Like there are some really, really broken mechanics, like game wise, in this. And I think that's what that was the intended thing with the points given to Jeremy as a GM to constantly just flood the battlefield, and we get to play like in a video game, and we just get to nuke everything.
Yeah, it did feel like that. Especially some of the in that quick starts, the way some of the battles were written, it's just like, just keep spending fear and keep reinforcing it until and that's also why they built kind of clocks into it. They had a time countdown. They called it countdown. So there were countdowns, and based on how many you slaughtered, and it was based on how many players there were, the length of it. So it's just like, make it longer. It's like, okay, they have to kill 12 or do they have to kill 20 before that triggers this next event? Like that sort of thing was built in to the narrative. So it did feel, video gamey, and then you're just slaughtering things until the next cutscene is triggered, and you see how the story advances.
Yeah.
Well, and we were talking about, Matt was saying worrying about threat and stuff like that. Matt, I don't want to burst the small bubble you have about this, right? But I chose to die. I could have just fallen down like D&D 5e style, and you guys could have healed me after the battle.
That's a very good point. Minus 1 point, Jeremy. Sorry.
Rip.
Which I like that as a death mechanic in a broad sense, right? I like the idea of that's why I wanted to do what I did, is because I like the idea of like going out with a bang. Mind you, it was an impotent bang in the end, but still. I like that as a character concept, and I like having that as a rule in the game. But it still had the you drop to 0, you fall down. Which it feels like they don't have as much sound seems like standing up healing stuff that D&D has, but it still feels like there's it's definitely doing the high fantasy, not high fantasy, heroic fantasy, like vein, right? Where you're like, no, we're all wushu warrior masters, all of us, no matter whether or not we're a wizard or whether or not we're a druid, we're all just doing cool super stuff all the time.
Overall mechanically, the game lacks risk, and that's again one of its biggest flaws
for us.
I think that
fair enough.
What they want.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Do you remember the battle with at the cart? We all went our own direction, but if we all stayed together, nothing could stop us. The crab boss did some damage. The tree boss did some damage, but in general, we were very OP.
And my biggest critique with the adventure is how the boss fight got difficult. And if I can talk real quick, the adventure was pretty standard, 3 acts, great. 4 locations, 3 adventure sites, 1 a social hub, awesome. The fights within each act escalated, great horde mode boss in the 2nd act. The 3rd act had a mini boss before the boss fight, awesome. But the entire time through the story, they're telling you mechanically that the deeper you get to this mystery, you need magic to kill the things attacking you. And at the very end, they made the last boss fight more difficult by reversing that without giving you any sort of like narrative clues. So it almost felt like because we were paying attention to the story and we prepared, we got punished by a much more difficult boss fight. And I just thought that was a very poor way to escalate that final fight story-wise.
Right.
And if they hadn't have done that, we would have mopped up the boss.
Yeah.
So I think that's just more of a storytelling flaw within that quick start adventure.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit our session 0. So after we did the character creation, so in this book they give you this kind of itinerary for running a session 0, and they give you 5 to 10 minutes player introductions, 5 to 10 minutes session overview, and then they have a couple of their safety tools and things that they include, just expectations of content and things. But we just basically took a look at the campaign frames. So they give you, I think, 5 campaign frames, and taking those as kind of inspiration or deciding, let's look, 6. They give you 6 campaign frames, and we just kind of built up, what we wanted this world to be, and what the characters, left their homes for, what they were, joined up to do, and did some just some world building. It ended up being pretty dark and very interesting. I think the more than anything, more than really anything that they had touched on in their campaign frames, I think we did some nice job of doing that. And then so what I did from your ideas is just take that and then kind of corrupt the Quickstart, in the way that would match the world building that we did.
You infected it with the unmaking, so it
yes.
It became
yeah. So
very, very meta.
Oh, he's the
Very
source. Oh, I get it.
Oh no. So yeah, the fun thing was all of the art and all of the descriptions were, as things are nice and everyone's doing great, and then I had to just like make the reverse of that, so everyone's dying and rotting and their magic's all corrupted and the crops are all dead, and yeah, no festivals this year. So it kind of took things apart.
Oh man.
So so
Makes my skin crawl.
how did you feel about that? Did that give you did it give you the kind of game you wanted to play? Was there enough of what we talked about in the setting in this Quickstart adventure?
Oh,
so.
Yes, but the problem with this, Jeremy, because we are here to talk about Daggerheart, is all the fun I had, both in the Session Zero and in the adventure, came from playing with you guys and the ideas that everybody had. Like, I hate to say it, but I feel like we made this fun. Like, there was no fun it wasn't like we opened the book and fun popped out in our face.
Right.
In my opinion, I think we had to. There's a lot of this game that I feel like, I don't want to be mean, but it feels a little half-assed. It feels like they put a lot on the GM and the players to just make it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be mean.
Okay, go ahead.
It is very wishy-washy. It leaves way too much over to us. It's like they didn't know what to do just by incompetence, or they were just scared because, like I said earlier, it's baby's first steps. And they left way too much to us. It's like the same thing. Like some of you really enjoyed the questions, like interacting with each other. But me coming in, I was like, why would I know any of you? Why are we going on this adventure? I thought like maybe we would just meet each other and we would talk and then we would get to know each other. But no, it was straight up, no, you guys need to know each other beforehand. You need to say all this stuff. And then you need to go on this glorious adventure. But it's all going to be, gentle and wonderful. And especially when you told me about like the old lady, the fairy thing and the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was weird. Like the washing feet stuff. That was like, that's some fetish stuff. Oof. And I think it says a lot about the people behind this, just the uncertainty to leave it over, because they want to give us the control, or how do you not consent, but I'm looking for a word.
Like empower us to make all the decisions.
Yeah, because it's about us. We're important. Everything needs to bend to our will. We're very awesome. We're very powerful. We can do these wonderful things. And we're going on an adventure. And like, okay. Meanwhile, our feet are being washed by some old lady? No.
I mean, I will say that Session Zero was some of the most fun I had. I thought the calibration aspects are some of the best parts of the system, and I do think that a lot of, Jimmy, you did a really good job taking all of the details and ideas that we brainstormed together and putting that into the Quickstart. I think it was like the Umbral framework is kind of what we went to, almost like Dark Souls via Disney. Was kind of. or maybe Ralph Baskey's Dark Souls published by Disney. But I think you did a really good job incorporating those elements into the Quickstart itself, and that the adventure overall was good. But I do agree with Matt that I don't know how much fun was the fun that we created together and how much was the actual game we played.
It was all our doing, none of theirs.
Well, okay, so I'm going to be a contrarian here then, because I feel
you
like,
bastard.
I feel like you guys are all poopy heads, and I don't like what you said. No, I think.
Praise Matt Mercer. Praise Matt Mercer.
Yeah. To me, that's I think there's two ways to go about making a game, right? I mean, I think all of us aren't saying that inherently it's wrong. It did not at all work, or it didn't work the way we wanted it to, type of thing. I think, but this game is coming at you with, no, this is entirely your adventure setting and story. You have to make it all up. So, for me, I like the fact that we made it all up, and so it was our stuff. Because this is one of the things I have with a lot of IP stuff, right? How many games, Jeremy, have I played now that I've never read the books, seen the movies, or done anything? I think every one of them we've ever done. And so I'm always coming in just getting things off of context clues and off of pop culture knowledge type of thing for like Dune and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think it's caused some conflicts with like my character motivations in like Dune. I think my character, if I had read the books and watched the movies beforehand, I don't think I would be the same. My guy would have been the same. My Trebroven would not have made some of the same decisions potentially that he made. I don't know, but this makes you all buy in on the IP, mm-hmm. and I think that's something because it's your guys' IP, mm-hmm. if you want to use that term. Whereas it's like if we sit down, we're like, hey, we're going to play a Star Wars game. It feels like that setting is very built, right? But is it? Because we show up and Matt's wants to be a smuggler, and I want to be a Jedi in the Old Republic, and Taro wants to, I don't know, be a spice smuggler too. And it's like, okay, no, wait, we can't do this together. Like, no matter where we go to, we still have to all work together as a team and come up with stuff. And I think that, to me, throwing you all out there and making you have to build a world together from, I'm doing air quotes here, scratch, it is I think almost the point of this game is to make it, you are the most, I mean, this is the heroic fantasy, power fantasy thing, right? You are, maybe you're not known to be the most important people, but you are the protagonists of the story, and the world actually swings around you, and you're a hero is what they're selling. And I feel like by having us make the world that we want around us, that's what it accomplished. So to me, that wasn't, that worked for me.
Sorry, I just realized what the whole point of it is. Then it's cozy gaming. That's what it is.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, Will brings up a good point because he brings up Doom, which is the 2D20 Medifia system, and I always seen that as a genre simulator. Like the 2D20 system mechanically seems to be designed so you can fantasy roleplay in this IP. They've kind of molded that system to, and this is trying to be a much more narrative-driven game. Which I think the aspects of the game that I enjoyed the most were that, but there just seemed to be constant friction with the mechanical aspects that just didn't fit very well with the narrative side of the game. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion, anyways.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Go ahead, Abyss. That's cool.
No, you go first. That's okay.
Well, I actually, in a funny way, agree with your sentiment, Will. I think though, like a lot of this game, it's not executed right. They should have presented that on the back of the cover, in the introduction. It should have been made perfectly clear that this is a system for you to apply to your own game world. And it's not upfront about it. It's in the Game Master section, basically. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little, to me, it feels like a bait and switch because, as people mentioned earlier, you add to that the complication that a lot of eyes that are going to be on this book are people that came from Critical Role fandom. So they're looking for something that relates to Critical Role, right? And there's nothing.
No, I can see that.
There's nothing in here for that.
I had this exact same thought earlier today when I was thinking about this conversation, because I thought about, like, the reason I have a Cypher system game is because I bought into Numenera. Like, if it wasn't for Numenera, I don't think I would have ever even given the Cypher system a second look. So I'm wondering what Critical Role fans are going to get out of Daggerheart, because they're basically being given just an open license style system with no flesh on it, like no meat, no juicy meat. But it's also being like, hey, tell your own cozy little story. So I wonder what the impact is going to have in the TTRPG cultural space, if any at all.
I think it also depends on what they promote down, like what they individually promote down the line, right? Because it's like because they just did the short session of the Age of Umbra, their thing. So then if they come out with that source book completely fleshed out like they did the Teldori source book or whatever it is in a year, and this is still functioning and everything's still up and running, now they have a lore book to put out and sell. I mean I think that they could use it to springboard a bunch of stuff, but yes, also it does not have a backstory, which is what I think that a lot of most other non-D&D systems are. Is there also a world and a system at the same time? And yeah, this is just the system.
I think it's a problem of too many, like the whole Hollywood issue. It's the issue of too many writers, and I wonder I question the experience of the people who made some of the modules. Is this like some friend, a friend of a friend, like people that knew each other, and now they're giving them their first chance to like write something and be creative, because you guys say that it's not clear to what it is, but the modules are completely all different and separate from each other. So I'm thinking there was very, very, very little communication between the actual people, and they had different groups making different sections of the book, and they didn't have like a group of editors sit together and like, how are we properly going to manage this book? And they're perfectly, like, there are tons of examples how to do this like properly, and it is a mess.
They had a lead designer, 7 additional game designers, and it looks like 12 additional writers. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that is a lot.
Quite a bit.
That's Daredevil, new season of Daredevil writing. Yeah.
Don't be harshing on my Daredevil.
Murdoch.
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit then about mechanics. We've kind of hinted, at things we've liked and not liked about them, but they're talking about the basis of this is their core duality dice system. You're always rolling 2d12. One die is your hope die, one die is your fear die, so they want you to have them different colors. And it was nice that the Roll20 VTT handled that, because that could definitely be a pain in the ass when you're forgetting, is blue hope, is red fear? I can't remember. So it's nice that it handled all that. And but I think the one thing, the point that you guys are making that does make a lot of sense is they're building narrative. They're putting too much narrative into mechanics. So basically your results, you have a target number. You have a DC basically between 5 and 30, and you're rolling those 2d12s. If the hope die is higher, you're rolling with hope. If the fear die is higher, you're rolling with fear. And then a success or failure based on if you meet the DC. So it's a little odd, because you need to explain, well, I succeeded but with fear. So how is that different? How is that different from any regular success? And then why does that open the opportunity for then the GM to, act against us? And then every single time, and then the burden was also on me to give you a consequence. So if you failed with fear and I had to give a complication, it's like how many times can you drop your weapon? How many times can, it get impaled in a tree or a stone? It did make it very repetitive because we did have round after round of combat that then every single blow that missed had a narrative reason that it missed. It wasn't just some colorful text. It was, actual narrative that switched, that switched things, gave narrative consequence that went back, back and forth between the sides. So yeah,
I think that's the problem with narrative stuff in general. Yeah, is that it depends on where you push it, right? If it's the same thing I have problems with the Powered by Apocalypse stuff, or what we had problem when we played Ironsworn too. It's like, okay, I mean that one at least had just pure successes in it, but this game every single roll is special, which means nothing is special.
Right.
Because every single roll has a special effect. So it means it's just a more complicated way to make everything mundane.
Right.
That's the inherent flaw with a lot of narrative systems is, again, like the mechanics should drive the story forward. The mechanics shouldn't force the story to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you're doing that every turn in combat or every time you make a decision, like you should be rolling because there's a risk involved, and then the storytelling around that risk should be organic.
Mm-hmm.
When you start forcing it every single time, it gets tiresome, and like it's also asking a lot of the players that you basically having to improv every single time you do something, as opposed to just like some things you just want to like have a freer flow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I also very dislike narrative story. Narrative.
Well, and I think it's really bad with round-around combat. Again, if all combat was a one-roll resolution because it's really narrative, I think that'd be fine, right? Because then it's like, okay, I rolled with fear, so I won this fight, but I got scraped up doing it, and that gives you some stuff. But yeah, if it's like I missed, but I rolled with fear, so now Jeremy's gonna go and he gets a point, and then stuff's happening, and then someone else rolls with fear, so then like, oh, so really what it is just the bad guys are going a whole lot. Do we need? Is that what we want to have happen? I don't know.
And then you add to that, you're rolling with hope or fear, but there's also criticals.
Yes.
And it's like, what? That's part of what we've kind of touched on a little is how bolted on so much of this feels. It's like
it's D&D combat with Genesis system bolted on, and I kind of wonder. Dragonbane is the Mutant Year Zero system, right?
No, Dragonbane
is its own thing?
Dragonbane is the BRP system turned into a D20.
Yeah.
So it was percentile, and they turned it into a D20, but it's still essentially a percentile.
Because I kind of wonder what this game would feel like if it was the Dragonbane combat and initiative with the narrative mechanics bolted on, as opposed to D&D. Because I feel that would work a little better, especially because you're in Dragonbane, you hit or you don't, and that's it. Like there's no more rolling after that. So I'm wondering if the combat was more streamlined, the narrative aspects would flow a little better.
So then with Dragonbane, then you still have like the criticals and the fumbles, and you have the advantage disadvantage rules. So I feel like game designers need to pick a couple things and then stop. Like if this game they didn't stop in a lot of instances.
Right. It's a basic combat, right? You rolled a hit, and you can get hope or fear with that, okay? And then you roll damage, and then that's compared. Well, you have to roll a hit and succeed against their evasion. I like the fact that armor and evasion are separate. Just in my headspace, that sounds right. But then you have the 3 different levels of damage that you do, and you're rolling damage, and then you take 1, 2, or 3 hit points. So in fact, in this game, it is very safe because nothing can ever do like 4 damage to you, right? It only does 1, 2, or 3 ever. So like you're never going to be killed in 1 hit in this game, no matter what. In theory, I mean, unless it's a narrative defeat. But
that's a good point.
But then you slow combat down to this round-around fight. But then it's like they try to answer. I think they try to answer like general complaints of like, oh, hit point bloat with like 5e again. Well, we'll give you less hit points and make individual blows matter, but in a way, you still have the equivalent of 50 D&D hit points, because nothing can kill you in one hit, and it's still going to take 3 or 4 hits or 3 or 4 good hits probably to take you out,
Right.
let alone half hits type of a thing. So yeah, I think I don't think that, like, I think is what everyone's saying. I don't think that any of these systems are bad. I think that they're piled on top of each other, and if you aren't there to play the system, which is how I feel about a lot of narrative games, it's supposed to be narrative and it's supposed to be like this free-flowing thing, but then there's so many rules that it feels more cumbersome than like a D&D combat.
Some of it was really frustrating. Sorry, can I?
Go ahead.
It was really frustrating for me because Will saying like rounds is round like when the GM goes, because I didn't see any rounds. It was whoever wanted to go, and I had to constantly just from my own experience, I didn't know when to go or when to speak up. Like Arturo, I think like sometimes went like 2 or 3 times, and I didn't know when I was supposed to go, and I would really like for them to make it more defining for when a person should be allowed to go.
Right.
Okay,
right.
I rolled a fear, so yeah, the GM then rolls. Okay, who goes next? Whoever speaks up first.
Right.
Because I brought this up. Yeah, I brought this up after the stream. I believe at the first time we had combat. I had no idea if I should speak up, interrupt. And I felt really horrible interrupting you a few times, Jeremy, when you wanted to move on constantly with the story. But I felt like I didn't even take an action.
Right.
Especially with like the last boss. It was that frustrated me to no end, because I wanted an interaction with the little guys, and then I interrupted you speaking, and it made me feel really, really guilty. And that's something I think I should not be feeling at that moment.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's why I think you need a framework of rules.
Yeah.
That everyone can rely on.
Well, it's funny they have the.
I had a.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was going to say to Will's comment earlier about the combat. I had a metaphor I came up with earlier that if you ever been bowling and they have those lanes that have the bumpers in the gutter, so like your ball can never go into the gutter. You'll always hit a pin. That's kind of what combat feels to me. They're like, there's no real risk, and if there's no risk, then your narrative combat system isn't interesting to me at all.
Right.
Like, why should I be telling a story if there's not going to be a really like cool aspect? It's just like you're playing it safe, and I feel that's the biggest theme of this system is they somehow tried to like swing for the fences, but also played it really safe at the same time, and have a hard time like wrapping my brain around those decisions.
I think that has to do more with their fan base, with how they want to play. Because a lot of it, a lot of like their play base revolves around like consent and community and stuff like that, and they want just a wonderful experience. And introducing things like death and risk and stuff like that can throw a lot of people off. And if it could make them maybe feel uncomfortable, something like that. I think that's the idea behind it. You have your adventure, you do your things. They're like the moments where you go, oh, that was close, but they don't ever want to feel like they might lose their character that they invest their time in. Like a video game. In a video game, you get game over, but then you could just reload the save file. But what happened to Will's character? Well, Will's character's now gone, depending on what Jeremy does.
Right.
But that's the problem. That's the problem with that concept of I want to have a narrative-driven game with no risk because everyone wants to protect their darlings. But to have good stories, sometimes you have to kill your darlings.
Yeah, I know. But that's
they put that in the game though, right? They literally said like, okay, if you take 8 points of damage, do you want to blow up? Do you want to die, or do you want to just fall down? So they put it on you when you want to do that.
Yeah, but you had to take a lot of hits in order to get that far, right?
No, well, not really, but I think it's like anything. All they have to do is you increase all the numbers by 2, and also in combat's incredibly deadly. I mean, it's the same problem people have with any of these more crunchier combat things, I think, is that there's always the us looking back and looking at it from like not thinking about if we rolled poorly or not, or if we rolled well or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you can get in a combat situation where, you know, if the things do one more point of damage or do a little bit more stuff, they can kill you quickly. I mean, I think I only got hit twice in that last fight and died because he rolled really high damage both times.
Right.
But then again, it was on like, part of it was because I knew we were done, but part of it's also because I wanted to try blowing myself up. it was a choice to make, and so like you're right. It is all safe actions people are choosing. They're putting it entirely on you whether or not you make a heroic sacrifice or not, which I kind of appreciate. But it also means that depending on, there's going to be, and maybe this is good, I mean, this is the good or bad thing, right? There's going to be players, like I know some players I play with, that would always just fall down and would never do the sacrifice play.
Yeah.
Right? Like they would never do that, because in their mind, like, well, why would I kill my guy? Exactly like you're saying. Whereas other people are going to, whereas I tend to, I feel like, continuously want to throw my guy on the grenade. So I guess it gives me that ability and gives them that ability. But like, so I mean that's good, but it's also not an even tone in the game. But I mean that's the thing. All things for all people means nothing for nobody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything is special, so nothing's special.
That death mechanic sums up a lot of this game, though. It puts it on you. Like they're not filling in blanks in so many parts of this game. Like, again, I don't want to say half-assed, but I'm thinking half-assed.
It is extremely half-assed. Wishy-washy.
It could be a full-ass attempt, though, if that's what they wanted to do. That's I'm not trying to like always be double advocate here, but like, I don't know if it's so much. From my perspective, I don't know if it's so much half-ass as much as it's, like in terms of design, is maybe as much as a half-ass in terms of wanting the experience to be all things for all people, right? It's like the big blockbuster movie that has no soul. It's like you can't say they didn't put a bunch of time or effort. People didn't spend tons of hours designing things and thinking about stuff, but then there was a committee or whatever it was that decided that they didn't want the character to get hurt, so they cut that part out. So I mean, I guess it's kind of the same end result. It's just I'm trying to think of like actual intent, because I'm wondering, if they had the intent of wanting it to be safe, or if they just didn't design it well enough to be dangerous. I don't know which way they went.
The funny thing. Yeah, it could be. The thing I'm thinking about, did you, Jeremy, earlier say that they already played this on their show?
Oh,
they just finished a little short campaign of this game. Yeah.
Not the Quickstart.
Did any of you guys?
Oh no.
Did any of you guys watch it?
I watched the first half of the first episode, and then the tone wasn't really working for me. But
so did they do? See, I haven't watched a ton of Critical Role, but when I have watched it, it is a lot of just sitting around the table, improv, yakety schmack, and not actually engaging with the rules. Did they do? Was it like that in the Daggerheart one also?
It wasn't the last. I mean, they started out with the guy, because they were doing the what's the campaign, like the Dark Souls style kind of campaign, like everything's dark and the thing. So they started the campaign.
The Umbral.
They started the thing with one of the guys who's supposed to be like a courier running into town. And the first thing he did was have him be attacked by a monster, and he literally almost killed him in like the first 2 minutes of the thing, because the guy rolled and got fear, and so the thing attacked him, and then he rolled a lot of damage, and then he rolled with fear again, and then the thing hit him again, and then he limped away and ran away and got inside. So whether or not that was scripted or not, whatever you want to think, but there was a bunch of combat mechanic stuff at the beginning.
So they were rolling
but
dice.
Then it was all character interactions and introductions after that. Yeah.
Okay. Because like I said, the couple of times I watched their main show, it's mostly been no system engagement at all, and I I'm thinking back, Jeremy, to the last episode of the Weekly where Chris was talking about when they tried Monster Hearts.
Oh yeah.
And how annoyed she was that they didn't engage with the rules.
Right.
They just bullshitted the whole time.
Yep.
And I think if that's the perspective they're coming from, it maybe impacted how this game got made, like because they really don't care about that stuff very much,
Well, that's what's interesting, right? Because you're 100% right, but then they've also had some sessions that are 4.5-hour sessions that are one long, arduous boss combat. Like they're like, the boss fights you, and they're like, we're gonna catch this next episode, and then next episode they start with them rolling initiative, and they play for 4.5 hours, and it's one just non-stop, ridiculous D&D combat fight.
D&D,
and then they're like, wow, this ran really long, but we finally finished it. We'll pick up next time, type of a thing. So they have occasionally delved deep into this, like, and that's kind of the catch-all, I think, with that, is that I think that the main guy is a crunchy mechanics guy with a theater streak that then what everyone likes is the theater. Like, everyone likes the shopping episodes, right? That's what all the YouTube chatter is about, is them going and goofing around type of thing. So obviously they focus on that, but I know that at least that Matt Mercer guy does seem to like care about combat and be like, oh, you did this, well, I counter it with this move, and this does this, and like there's been times where he's been mechanically very astute and brutal to them, but generally as soon as it's a narrative thing, they just goof off. So I feel like, again, that's what this game's trying to do, is trying to do like crunchy mechanics with a bunch of narrative stuff slapped on top of it.
Yeah, and with the that spotlight mechanic, that really seems like what they're trying to do is like when somebody has an idea for a gag. It's not like your role in combat. It's not like, this is an action I want to take in combat. This is the joke I want to tell, or this is the wacky thing I thought I wanted to do. Yeah, I take the spotlight. So it is much more an improv performance thing. And it's funny though, in the rules, in the rule book, they admit that the spotlight probably isn't going to work for a lot of people because they have spotlight and then they have optional rules. Spotlight tracker, which is basically initiative. So have all of your players take a token and then spend that token every round. So yeah, that's kind of initiative, isn't it?
That's initiative.
It is in the game. Where was that in the game when we were playing?
Well, it's optional.
Yeah, it's an optional tool. Yeah. So they do have it because they do realize that unless you're a bunch of improv voice actors, maybe it's it's not going to work very well. Yeah, very interesting. And so I think the that economy, it's the hope and fear, and I think even the naming, like we're talking about this being a cozy game, I think naming it hope and fear instead of like chaos and order or something light and dark, balancing, some forces balancing each other. Hope and fear is very weak. It sounds very, very silly and very weak because these are heroic adventurers and they are having hope and fear. I think they would be a little past that when they're off slaying.
I see. I think they were at the table, and Matt Mercer said, "Oh, maybe we should choose hope and fear." And they went, "Oh yeah. That sounds very cool, very cool."
But he said it in a really cool voice, so they're like, "Oh wow, that sounds so good."
Yeah.
But the other thing,
but I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that even though they have the frameworks for the different sort of background world stuff, they, even with that, no matter which one you pick, everything before it is a kind of softened high fantasy thing, and so it's in the DNA. I can see it in the DNA of this game, like. The turtles selling us all the magic doodads, like, oh god, that's the high fantasy bullshit I hate. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was listening to a little bit of an interview. This is, I think, before the release with Spencer Stark and Matt Mercer, and Matt Mercer did really talk about this is a system intended to be played by Critical Role, and I didn't know that was the stance. Like, that they were like designing this for how they play the game. He literally said that in an interview, and then Spencer Stark was also talking about when they were defending this fear and hope, fear and hope system, and then the spotlighting, is that their intention is to keep everybody engaged, so that you're not saying, "Oh, I'm the third person in initiative, so after I go, I got about 10 minutes I can wait," to keep you kind of active, because at any time initiative or control spotlight can go back to the players. So their excuse for doing this was that they're trying to keep it much more active, and I think there's something that I liked about that. Unlike the momentum, because they named it in the 2d20 system, the Modifius 2d20, they name it momentum, and it's these points you generate that you can keep taking actions, that you can take double actions and power things, and to have that actually be a mechanical roll, like if you do well, you get to go again, or another teammate gets to go, like you keep control of the battle. To have that mechanically, the momentum continues, I think, is interesting, because you could have really interesting combats where if you rolled really well, you just completely wiped out an entire party of goblins or whatever. But at the same time you rolled badly and you just got piled on by a bunch of a mob of tiny little grunts. So there was something that I liked about that, but I think it was meant to serve improv and just being silly, and not actually the mechanics of the combat. But
I like 2d20. The momentum is the meta currency in 2d20. I like. I'm kind of on the same page with Will with the threat meta currency, like, because we're all game masters, so it's I don't understand why it needs to be there, but momentum to me makes sense because it's tactical, like you have to make a choice when you use your momentum, and it's also based on how well you perform. The hope fear thing feels more arbitrary to me.
Yeah, because it has nothing to do with how well you can roll an 11 and a 12 on the two dice, but the 12's a fear dice, so you succeeded with fear.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's because it's not it's not actually based on how competent you actually succeeded at. Yeah, I don't know. It's something about it seems a little off. I could spitball a bunch of solutions in my mind, but
it's too many systems working at the same time, because you have this kind of like similar to a momentum system, that is a system that kind of the flow of battle can change either way. Plus you're generating a meta currency on top of that, that then is also pushing a narrative mechanic, and it's just too much, and it's asking too much of the system.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Well, let's talk a little bit about how we. So this is the first time we've played together as a group. So it was Daggerheart was an interesting choice to be our first game together. But what did you guys think of the platform? We talked about its use in the character creation. How did Roll20 and its integration with the with Nexus, with the with the two systems? How did the digital versions of this work for you?
My personal experience with it, in all honesty, is this is the smoothest like VTT experience I've had in all the times we've played. Right, I feel like there's always been a problem. Maybe not the very first things we did, because we were playing on Albo Radio or whatever it was, and you were just throwing up JPEGs and stuff like that. But like this, I didn't have any troubles. I mean, I had my own ignorance. I'm William. I don't know how computers work problems. But we made the character, and I typed the little thing in, whatever it was, on Roll20, and then it all updated it. And when I changed my character, it changed it on both platforms for me automatically. I didn't have any glitches or weirdness. The dice roller worked. There was all the hot links in the character sheet for most every power to explain stuff. There's still stuff we were confused on, but there was a lot of that rulesy stuff that you could just mouse over. What does that mean? And it'd give you another link or do something else. I thought it was amazing from my standpoint.
I 100% agree, and I've used a lot of Roll20 in the last few years, both as a player and as a GM, and I've used like modules that are like pre-built into the VTT, and this is some of the smoothest integration I've ever seen. We didn't really get tactical with like Fog of War and stuff like that, which is generally when I see Roll20 start to crap the bed is when you're adding some more of those higher end graphics. But I was very impressed with the character sheet and how everything just worked, and everything was right there on the paper. It did all of it for you.
Oh yeah,
I agree too. Like I've never run anything in Roll20, but as a player, I've always been whatever. It's what it is. But with the Demiplane character sheet, that was a lifesaver because again, like I said earlier, there's so many different little things going on here that it felt kind of 4E-ish to me, and I fucking hate that stuff. And so the fact that this system is so like they thought of all kinds of stuff. I mean, while we were playing, I kept discovering, oh look, you can do that, or you guys would tell me, yeah, just click that and it'll show you the thing, and then it's like it was very well done. So, you know, the Demiplane designers deserve a lot of props. They did really good.
I agree. I completely agree. I think I'm younger than all of you. I'm a child of the internet. Like, I don't know anything else better than like being online on the computer, not with a telephone, but just like the web browser. They paid a lot of money for that because that works really well. I've been around the block and I've used a lot of internet sites, and this is my first time using something like this. And it was a really smooth experience. Not once did it crash. I think the only difficulty that me and Matt both had was that the pop-up got blocked on Roll20. But outside of that, it was really good. It almost felt like I was using a program inside a web browser. Like the last time I've had experience with something like that was what is it called? Not Newgrounds. The Congregate. No, Congregate. Congregate? The Congregate? The video game where you play the little web browser games.
I'm not sure.
It's not once did it crash, not once did it lag, not once did it like. The moment you type something in, it saved it straight up. You didn't have to press any button or whatever.
Right.
And it allowed how Roll20 automatically just took everything straight off the bat like that was very, very impressive. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like with when you try to like combine accounts like with your on Steam or like with your Xbox account or your Sony account for your PlayStation, like a lot of that is very laggy, it's very slow, it's prone to crashing, errors and whatever, you know, with a save file uploading. And this, it was just constant, just a flow of information, unobstructed. I really liked it.
That's good.
I mean, and I've done a lot of Roll20, but I never learned like the programming side of it or like all the API stuff. But they paid somebody some good money to put this together because it was very impressive.
Yeah, it's under the same company now, which I think is Roll20 Inc. It used to be One Bookshelf. So these are the owners of Drive-Thru RPG, Demiplane, Roll20, and I believe the mapping software. I forget what that's called, like Dungeon Sketch or something. So that it's all basically they're trying to integrate it into one platform. So Demiplane Nexus is made by the creators of D&D Beyond, and you can tell because it you know has a lot of the same kind of nice graphical interface, and then you know it tells you everything you need to do, and you play from the character sheet. And I was worried because you buy this as a bundle, so you can buy on Drive-Thru, you can buy a Demiplane Nexus Roll20 PDF bundle, and there really is not content for Roll20. Like Roll20 is just everything that you import from Demiplane. So that was a bit of a worry when I first saw that, because if you're trying to purchase something through Roll20, it just forwards you to the Demiplane Nexus for Daggerheart. And that's because the compendium, basically the rules and all of the details of the system, is all hosted on Demiplane. So that's a little bit different from the way that Roll20 has worked before. I don't know if this is like how they're going to do things in the future, and maybe Daggerheart was a good opportunity to kind of work on this more heavy integration. But yeah, it was surprisingly, I think, for dealing with a new system, character creation and everything, I think it saved us a lot of heartache. I think the stream would have lagged with rules lookups and a lot of things that we didn't have to worry about because, you know, it was all on the character sheet. It was all clickable, by links and easy to look up. So yeah, it was surprising. It was very new, and this wasn't like a Roll20 experience that I had before either. And I was also worried about if our characters were even going to show up. You know, once we started the first session, if the the migration would even work. And I think, Will, you even noticed that it was auto updating. Like if you made a change on Roll20, it updated in Demiplane. If you made a change in Demiplane, it updated on Roll20. So it was pretty much real time updates of any changes that were made. That was surprisingly well done. So they definitely, like Abyss was saying, they should definitely be complimented for how well this was executed. They did a nice job.
I mean, and honestly, that alone may be the thing that makes this a powerhouse. On top of the power behind Critical Role and stuff like that, the fact that it's all integrated so well and it works so well, I think is a big thing for them. And I hope that other people, I realize that everyone wants to have a VTT, but most people who design games are not programmers. But hopefully more people figure out how to partner with people to get this type of stuff done. Because I think especially for something that's as complicated really as this game is, having all the rules and everything all referenced and auto update, and if you click the button on the individual power, it rolls the dice for you based on your actual attributes with no mistakes.
Yeah.
Is all stuff that makes it easy for the especially for the target group that they're going for, which is the people who, by all appearances, as they're marketing it, are the people who are afraid of math, rolling dice, and figuring stuff out. They want to just tell stories. It's good to have the computer do all that for you.
Right.
What's ironic to me is that the Demiplane Nexus Roll20 integration is literally what D&D Beyond should have become. Except for they dropped the ball. They tried to make a video game instead and monetize it. Yeah. And now it doesn't exist.
And now Roll20 is kind of out of their reach. You know, Roll20 is another company, and they're a competing company. So integrating D&D Beyond with Roll20 is not what, you know, Wizards of the Coast wants to do. They definitely are going to want their own thing, but yeah, Sigil is dead. So that's not going to be a thing. Yeah. So for explanation, just really quickly. So Demiplane Nexus is just the digital platform that it's like a suite of tools. The character sheet, there's even a dice roller in there, and it's all of the rules presented in kind of a web page based format with hyperlinks and everything. And then Roll20 is where you get your maps and your tokens and your lighting effects and everything. And those two platforms, you can move the data of your character back and forth. It doesn't communicate. It doesn't, like the roles and everything. If you do them in Demiplane, they don't show up anywhere else. But you do have in Demiplane a group page, so you can build a party, you can build a group, and you have chat, and you can post pictures and things. And then in Roll20, you maintain the journal of the history of all your roles, kind of the log of all the roles and everything that's happened during the session. It's just a kind of a very standard VTT. Let's see. So the only thing, it's just a little bit extra. Like if you want that Demiplane integration, I think the price difference between just the PDF and the PDF plus Demiplane was like $10. So it's not a big big additional charge, but you do have to have a subscription to Roll20, I think, to be able to make that integration work. So just their lowest level subscription. So it's not a cheap option. It's definitely not a free option, but it seems to work. Yeah, it seems to work okay. And I was just glad. I'm glad we did it. And when Will and I went through that wanted to go through the Daggerheart rules, I just kind of pulled the trigger on getting the whole thing. And I think it worked well for us. I don't think we would have enjoyed playing this if we would have done it any other way. If we tried to, rebuild it in Alchemy or something, it would have been very frustrating.
which to me shows an amount of caring, right? I mean, obviously however they're doing this, they want to put in the effort to.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. I mean, I'm sure they're milking this for money as much as they can in a way, but I feel like there is some care and intent behind it. Whereas I feel like their other one, Candela Obscura, I don't think that's had anything as
that's true,
detailed and as connected as this. So
I think
they realize to be their baby.
Yeah. It is one of the games on Nexus. Candela Obscura is one of the games, I believe, or maybe it's not.
Oh, really?
But no, I think that's. No, I think you're right though. It's something the Roll20 probably saw as an opportunity because they basically are creating their own, ecosystem. It's still kind of open. You can play a lot of other things in it, but they're creating a pretty good pathway from buying the game digitally to playing it online. Is very straightforward. Yeah, Nexus has quite a few. Demiplane has quite a few Nexus games, so I'll just bring those up. Yeah, they do Pathfinder, the Marvel game. Yeah, Candela Obscura is one of them. But nobody's. Yeah,
wonder if it's his.
I don't know. Yeah, if it's.
So these VTTs, I recently learned this. I don't know why it never occurred to me, but they charge minimum sales fees to host your modules.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I was talking with this guy on Blue Sky who has a little indie company called Table Cat Games. Mm-hmm. He does this kind of funny RPGs. Like he has one called Monster Truckers and stuff. But anyway, he had to pull his Foundry modules because the minimum sales fees were costing him money instead of him making money for being on Foundry because he's an indie game designer, so he's just not selling as much as Foundry wants him to.
Right.
So I'm sure they have arrangements like that for all of these games. Maybe they get a little softer with it with these big draw games. I don't know, but. There's always
it's funny too. On Demiplane, there's a Nexus for 5e, so you could actually play D&D 5e not on D&D Beyond, and then go into Roll20 from that. That's funny, and probably then also all the flavors of 5th edition. But,
awkward.
Yeah, that's really weird. So it's going to be interesting to see, because now that I have all the content that's available for Daggerheart right now and Demiplane, how they're going to try to upsell me, like how they're going to package these new subclasses and maybe new settings or whatever, like what's going to happen in the future. That's going to be, when they start to expose their business model, if they're going to nickel and dime you, 99 cents and you can add a barbarian if you'd like, if they start doing that kind of thing, that will be interesting.
You mean like Paradox Interactive?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
Two quick things. I should point out that we did discover that if you weren't logged into your Demiplane, you couldn't really access the functionality of the character sheet in Roll20.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
And also, I just looked at the Nexus for 5e. It's literally just Tal'Dorei and Kobold Press.
Oh, really?
And some other stuff. I'm not seeing any Wizards of the Coast stuff on here.
That's funny.
So either it's being hidden or they are not accessing.
Right. Yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way it is on Alchemy. Like you can play 5e no problem on Alchemy, but you're never gonna see a WotC product.
I see. Oh, that's funny.
But that's different than Roll20 because almost everything that was at least old 5th edition was available on Roll20.
That's right.
Well, yeah, that's because they didn't have their own competing stuff they were doing when it started, right? And then they would have to pull it out, and everyone was already mad. So
spoilers, they still don't.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well. Do you think that they should take the Microsoft route and put the cuck chair down and give the rights to what's it called, Alchemy?
Some of the best thing Hasbro has put out in the last decade, since the rise of TTRPGs and D&D, has been third-party things. It's Stranger Things. It's Baldur's Gate 3. It's Critical Role. If Hasbro was smart, they would just find really good partners and license shit.
Yeah,
but they can't.
Not smart.
They scare them away.
They instead of like giving people golden eggs to make them profit, they keep wanting to either keep the golden egg, or what happened with Larian Studios is they wanted more money and they fired all of the contacts that Larian had through Wizards of the Coast. So this software publisher like, you just fired all our friends and you want more money? No, we're gonna do our own thing. F off. So like,
yeah, but that ruined their credibility permanently. No one wants to work with them besides making money. Like having the honor of doing something with D&D. No big game, like no indie dev or whatever will ever go near Hasbro ever.
Chris Cox ain't worried. He's just going to get AI to do it all.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we have Daggerheart. Is they had that open license debacle, and everyone. It was a systems race. You know, everyone had to come out with their own system, and I think they're the ones that got out the door first, and they're kind of like, they're not the, D&D still the 800-pound gorilla, but they're definitely one of the biggest names in that market share. So like, what if the next generation of tabletops, it's D&D and Daggerheart as opposed to D&D and Pathfinder?
Ooh.
That would
I
be
have a
wild.
question. On the topic of like AI and stuff, do you think like ChatGPT and stuff was used in order to help make this?
Oh no.
Because it could explain some of it, right?
I don't think so.
You don't?
No.
Not the system part.
They did get some really good like designers to come on board of this game. Like,
there's a lot.
The names attached to this have done some really, really good stuff, and it does seem that like as a company, they do at least show that they care about creators. Like I will say that about them. They're not corporate stooges like Hasbro yet. I think they need a little bit more success before they get to that role.
And they have enough. I think that they're like. I think the Critical Role, like their market. I don't know what you want to say. Their fan base is so critical of things. Oh, hey, their name, I get it. But so critical of things because that they can't do a lot. I mean, it's like when they did that Wendy's RPG thing, right? They did it for like one session, and they took it down and deleted it from the internet because people were so pissed off that they went to a big corporation that had something to do with tomatoes with farmers, and there's some issue at the time that like their fan base won't let them do things that they perceive it. I mean, mind you, they could do a lot of stuff that their fan base doesn't care about probably, but the fact that they were doing something that wasn't like uplifting an indie creator bit them in the butt, and this was like 4 years ago or something like that this happened. So I think that they also have to toe this line of not doing stuff, because I know that there's right now people are up in arms about their licensing agreement for doing stuff with them right now.
Right.
I don't know the particulars, but I know that some of it seems kind of standard and some of it seems kind of harsh and okay, but it's like it's what they printed and what they want to do. That's the other thing I don't get about it. Like the problem with the Wizards of the Coast thing was the fact that they said, "Hey, this is open, everyone can use it," and then they went, we're gonna do takesies backsies, and people are like, "Whoa, a bunch of us have hitched our cart to your big corporate wheel, and now you're being jerky corporate people." But I think if they come out and say, "Hey, we're going to be jerks to start with," I'm not really that upset about it.
It is kind of terrifying, though, that they're still prisoners then, because they escaped Hasbro WotC, but they're still beholden to their fan base. So that prohibits creativity, like a lot of creativity that they can't expand
only because they're cowards. Like
I don't. Yeah, but
I mean, if they were no, I mean, I hate to say this, but like if they really cared about what their art is and that art is storytelling, they would be willing to take more risks.
Yeah,
and they would like if they respected their audience, they would take their audience in that journey. Maybe that's me being a little harsh, and honestly, I don't have any beef with Critical Role, so I think that comes off as harsher than I mean it to be. But that's just like my opinion. And I respect what they're doing, though I wouldn't do it. But I also like If my game, if I got corporate sponsorship for my gaming group, I would have no shame. I would be eating Wendy's at the table while game mastering. If they wanted me to install battle passes and pay to play stores for my tabletop group,
no.
I would do that. Why not?
Well,
I got
Let's chill.
what you're saying. I think part of that is the thing is that they're actually beholden because it's like all streamer type stuff. They're actually beholden to their fan base, so they can't. They could sell out, but they make millions of dollars off of this, and they have a whole thing that they're doing. So, what are they going to sell out? It'd have to be $1 billion to be worth it for them to sell. Right? It's like if you're making $20 million a year off of streaming and doing this stuff, and you know that if you do this stuff, it's going to piss them off. It's like it's not worth the $100,000 ad campaign that Wendy's is going to give us because it will crush what we have.
There is truth to that because I'm the other streamer community that I'm involved. I'm in. Kind of funny. They make content they think their audience is going to enjoy and engage with because that's what gets them clicks and that's what gets them advertising dollars. And sometimes they'll do a passion project and hopefully it's produced well enough that it gets that engagement. But they'll answer questions like, "Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And they basically say, "Because you won't watch it. And if you don't watch it, we can't get paid. And if we can't get paid, we can't pay our employees." Make things that you think your community will engage in, but I think Abyss has a point when he says that it gets a little bit more than that. It's where they're not willing to go places because they're afraid of the backlash, not just the lack of engagement.
Yeah.
On the other hand, their fans did let them make an entire horror RPG that's not scary.
Yeah, that's true. They were okay with that.
Because it's not a horror RPG. It's a steampunk themed spectral romance setting. There you go.
That's true.
And you know what, dude? Cozy RPG right now. Cozy Lit is kind of weirdly enough, it was slutty lit. And now it's cozy lit, or the two things that are most popular in the fantasy sci-fi world. Hey, not me, man. I'm just telling you what's out on the streets. Okay.
Very weird.
It's when it comes to Twitter, book, social media, that's what's hot right now. And if they are the big name in the room when it comes to cozy TTRPG, that's really smart, and that's 100% what their community wants. So, let them have that bag.
To me, they're more terrified than actually cowardice.
This is us also projecting onto them too. We don't know what they're actually thinking. I think,
no.
But also they've also reached though. I think they're at their pinnacle, right? I don't think Critical Role's getting. I mean, they may grow in total number of people who are watching them. They were much like 5e. 5 years ago, they were on this rocket ship of they were the thing. I feel. I don't think that they've dropped off, but I don't think that they're growing the same. I think they've reached the point in their development where they're okay, it's been pretty much all just bangers up until now from them economically and development wise. It's so now what do we do now? And so. I mean, they're doing the thing where they're bringing in lots of other cast members and they're rotating stuff out and they're trying to do stuff because I think that they've hit. Again, I don't think they're going away, but they have been doing this now for quite a few years. I think 10 years. They just celebrated their 10-year anniversary or something like that.
Yep.
So it's they're the nature of things. It's another 5 years will be the new thing, and it's not going to be another live stream D&D thing. It's going to be what's the next geek culture thing, that phenomenon that takes over. I think
it is pretty smart. It is pretty smart.
And respect for having a gaming group last over 10 years. Sometimes I can't get a gaming group to last an entire campaign.
Well, it helps if they start pulling salaries to play. Yeah.
That's
probably point.
If your players were paid, it would be.
Yeah, because it's still. One of the funny things I remember is one of the women there, she was at an award show and she was potentially going to win an award, and she had to leave. So she showed up in her full evening gown attire, 30 minutes into the thing, being I can't miss this thing. I don't know if I won the award or not, but this is more important. So I mean, they're having to make decisions and everything. Yeah, I mean, they're a loose friend group who's now probably a tighter friend group who became a work group.
Yeah.
So, we'll see where it goes. But
wow.
Go ahead.
If the Google AI can be believed, as of July 2025, the average salary of an employee of Critical Role Productions was 6 figures. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And that's employees, so that's not even them per se.
That's not even the talent. That's probably production staff, and that's an average. Yeah, so there's probably people in the millions and people in the 35,000.
Yeah, so honestly, like real quick, that number, like average employee salary, means nothing to me. A number that matters more to me is what is the average revenue an employee generates per year for that company. That tells you a lot more about what's happening financially.
Yeah. Do you think it's like a Silicon Valley thing? You mean like they give way too much to their employees of what they actually generate to hope that they can invest more or get more investment?
No, because an average is from your lowest paid employee to your highest paid employee.
Right.
So you have no idea how that number breaks down. When you look at what a company their yearly employee revenue generates, that tells you how much their revenue is and potentially what their profit is off that, and that will inform you more what people are getting paid fairly or not.
But their revenue stream though is so strange because a majority of it I think comes from Twitch, so they get millions of dollars annually from Twitch streams, so only the people involved in that, in producing that, are really generating the bulk of probably what the company makes.
And
interesting.
The reality is, like, not to poop-pot too much, but the reality is, like, they got where they were at by sitting around a kitchen table with just cameras pointed at them. Mind you, now they have crazy shenanigans, but I mean, I know they have some people that are probably making lots of money that are their producers and stuff like that behind the thing, and I'm sure there's people there that don't make nearly as much money, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's one of those things of what happens when you get a bunch of basically C-list Hollywood types together to do a D&D thing, and then it starts making money.
Right.
Well, they're kind of the only ones that have done it, and it's stuck. Like there was that moment where every B list star was trying to be in a D&D stream, and those all disappeared for the most part.
Yeah, like currently it's mostly just Critical Role and then the Dimension 20 people, which were, I think, the College Humor.
That seems right.
And like the only other group that I saw do something was like Matthew Lillard owns that like premium module company that does a lot of D&D stuff. Like you get like a $500 Raven. I mean, honestly, as a guy that likes boxes and stuff, like, man, if I had the money, I'd invest. But no, I don't. Yeah, it's very, very expensive.
Yeah, they pulled some shenanigans, those guys. Did you ever hear? No, never mind. Yeah. Good talk.
Yeah, but we don't know, like, the lightning in the bottle of Critical Role and the actual play, like, that I don't know if it's still there in the zeitgeist. So, like...
No, I don't think it is.
Who knows what the next era of that's going to be, or if actual plays are going to still continue to be the way they are now.
Well, I'd imagine that the 5e, the stink of 5e, which is the Coast stuff, because D&D is the face of RPGs to most people, that the community itself is soured on that. So I imagine that anyone who steps into it just hears how the main company thing that they associate with it all is evil and bad all the time when you walk in. So I wonder if, like, that's got to be why they did Daggerheart, right? Not just to compete with D&D, but you can't keep... If you have, in theory, as socially conscious customers as they have, for lack of a better term, or followers as they have, you can't work with corporations anymore.
I guarantee you that they were going to make that move regardless. It's just the OGL debacle sped up that
Oh yeah, it makes sense. I just wonder if it would have been the same thing. Like, it could have very easily have been a much smaller project, because I mean, the fact that they've started RPG like company on the side that's making other stuff, and in theory is going to be making more games.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that there's, from as a little bit I've heard, it doesn't seem like they're stopping with Candela Obscura and Daggerheart. It seems like they're going to be making more just like different systems, different things.
Right. And
so
and could afford to hire Crawford and Perkins, you know. That's some money. Yeah. So they're definitely going to be putting out a lot of stuff.
That tells me, like, the hire of the two dudes that just left D&D, specifically Perkins, that to me tells me that they're going to go all in on Daggerheart, and like they're going to come out with different settings to go with their system, and they're going to have a monster manual and magic books and all that stuff. That's where I see that, at least that the publishing company going.
Right.
I wonder if that's the case. I really wonder, because they could also make different things, and that might actually be the next big success. Not Daggerheart at all. The Daggerheart was just testing the waters, you know, tipping their toes in and see what they can do with it. And now they're going to they're busy creating the real project that they have not announced yet.
Yeah, anything less cozy would be wonderful.
I might be busy the day you run the Starheart Quickstart. Just letting you know.
Okay.
What about the Cyberheart Session 0? That'll be
Cyber.
They just go the way of I think they changed the name, but the Free League's indie publishing company that does all the Mortborg stuff. So it's like, will we get Pirate Heart? Will we get Steam Heart? You know?
Yeah. It's all.
Jeremy, if you do a session of Mech Heart, I'm all in.
Okay. Mech Heart is we're due. Yeah.
As long as your mech game has 18th century politics and feudalism, I'm 100% in.
Okay.
Well, they won't, though, because bad things happened during those time periods.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
That's the beauty of it. They don't actually make the settings, so you can make it whatever you want.
That's true.
See, solves all your problems, Matt.
Now I kind of want to see a cozy mech warrior, like, honestly.
No, I don't.
I don't either.
So are we going to move on to the next topic to glaze Matt Mercer and such?
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Be grateful.
Yes. Yeah, so any last thoughts, any parting shots at Critical Role, or any last thoughts? I think we've covered everything.
I would like to thank Matt Mercer personally for saving D&D and the role-playing community and giving us, you know, more things to look forward to.
No, I had a blast playing with you guys. This system was interesting. As someone that I don't design games, but I'm fascinated by game design. That's why I own so many different RPG systems. I'm fascinated by mechanics and specifically how mechanics interact with storytelling. And I think I appreciate the system more now after having this conversation, because I think Will had a really poignant point that they basically tried to replicate Matt Mercer's game master style in this system. And I think if that's what they were going for, they were largely successful. I disagree with some how some of the systems interact with each other overall.
Yeah, there's a little give and take with what they're doing.
But I mean, again, respect for the hustle. You know, they're just out in these streets trying to get that cream, and it's not a bad system. It's just not something I really want to. I'm not going to hassle you guys to do a second run of this unless we feel it'll get you more clicks. Like I'd honestly rather do some Traveler or like or something.
We can play something else with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's plenty of other games. Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I would just say, like, it's hard because, you know, I've been playing role-playing games for like 40 years, so it's hard to not sound like a grumpy old curmudgeon sometimes. So I just want to clarify, I don't hate the game or Matt Mercer. It's just not for me. But I don't think it was made for me.
Right. Yeah. How about you, Will?
I I think for me it fills the same spot now that 5e does. Like I think that because I have some friends that want to play 5e all the time, that's what we would play. To me, this feels there's some weird stuff with the narrative stuff that I don't like per se, but I enjoyed it. Like I said, when I blew up my character, I was like, oh, I can make another character, and like for me, I enjoy the like thinking of the cards and stuff like that. So that part of it appeals to me. So I would play this again if you guys wanted to. No problems at all. But it's also not the pinnacle to me either. Right. It's a strong C.
Nice, strong C. C plus.
Yeah, I would give it a strong IGN 7.
Nice.
All right. Yeah.
Got a good rating system here. Yeah, I think this might be the beginning, like the first step in it. It'll be interesting to see where Darrington Press goes from here, because they do, Spencer Stark and John Harper, like people involved, and Matt Mercer, and now everybody that's coming in. It's a little bit of a greatest hits of the bigger indie successes. Designers from some indie successes. So if they become the next big, if they become a Paizo, and it'll be funny to see. They'll be leaving. They'll be using their indie cred and be, but not really doing that anymore. This is going to be at such a bigger scale. It'll be interesting to see people coming from indie game design, what they do once they have the resources and the employees and everything to really turn some big, well-produced stuff out. This is not going to be zine RPGs and PDFs. This is going to be huge. How overproduced and gorgeous that box set that they made was for this. They're going to have resources, not quite Wizards of the Coast, but probably pretty close as far as like what Hasbro will let them do. So it'll be funny if this is the product of, all of the, success and what happened in indie RPGs. If this is what it births, is another big, another big game company. I don't know. That might be a good thing. That might be a bad thing. We'll find out.
I wonder how they're going to afford it all. Like, where do they get the money from to pay all these people right now?
Twitch, mostly.
Are they even making a profit?
Probably. I mean, they make like between 9 to 11 million per year on Twitch. So yeah, they don't need to do much else, because I don't think their overhead for their actual play production is $1 million a week. So
they'll be okay.
Yeah, they'll be good. And that's the nice thing about this, though, is they didn't go to crowdfunding. They had the confidence of, we have the fan base, we have the talent, we have the tools. They just did it.
Yeah, they Ghostbustered that shit. They Ghostbustered the crap out of it.
Actually, I would say they have another ulterior motive for not going to crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. When you go to crowdfunding, you expose yourself to so much more criticism.
Yeah.
Like they dodged that bullet, and I'm sure they did it intentionally.
Yeah, that's true.
That and they also, realistically, they also saved the 5.5%, right? That every crowdfunding thing takes. I mean, 10. If you have the people to do it,
10,
why?
10.
Yeah, it's 10.
10. Yeah, I mean, are they going to get 10% more people outside of them to first gen buy this? Probably not. So.
Right.
We can be cynical, but man, I want to put laurels, or give them laurels when they deserve it. And like, remember when Hasbro tried to kickstart their Hero Quest remake?
Yeah.
Like that's like, I love Free League, but sometimes I get annoyed that I have to finance them before the project's ever done. Mm-hmm. Even though they're my favorite publishing company in the TTRPG space right now. So I give mad respect for Darrington Press to not do a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding, especially in this economy. Like that takes some guts, especially the way most gaming systems are run right now. So I think we should, like, as cynical as we want to be, they make that 5%, or maybe they were scared. Like they promised a product and they delivered a product, and it's a pretty damn good product overall. Especially with the VTT integration.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with nothing wrong with what they did. Just we probably won't be back. But yeah, if they're still working on other systems, they'll have another shot at us eventually when they come up with something less foot washy, less hot tea and warm baths. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there and kind of, talking through everything we experienced with Daggerheart. So this is kind of a, the summation of what we played, and then also what Will and I went through when we were just looking at the rules and how this worked, and also the digital tools that are out there. I hope if you're interested in trying it, and you are familiar with digital platforms, I think the Demiplane Roll20 integration will surprise you. So thanks for joining us, and thank you to everybody, the supporters and backers, so members and patrons. And thank you, K5, for your long-term, I think it was 42 weeks of support. So thanks so much, and 42 months. And we'll be back again soon. So Upturn Table on all social media. Thank you to Matt, Will, Abyss, and Arturo for playing. And we'll be back as a group doing something else, I'm sure, and look forward to the weekly tomorrow. Take care, everyone. See you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Laters.